When I was really young, it started at the age of 4. My dad's brother's son came to live with us. He was about 18. I say 18, he may not have been that old, but he started sexually abusing not just me, but both of my sisters too. And so that's where our addictions stem from. You know, I tell people all the time that I was not bound by the drugs, I was bound by unforgiveness.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures. We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
Because
loved.
we are loved.
My name is Crystal. My addiction started in my early teenage years. It lasted for about 20 years, and it cost me more than I was ever willing to pay. The Lord found me and delivered me and gave me a purpose, and I've been serving out that purpose ever since.
Hey there, and welcome back to Jesus Loves Addicts. Today we're going to be talking to a friend of mine, actually, Crystal Ward from Alabama. Crystal spent over 20 years in addiction, and as she has said, it cost her more than she was ever willing to pay. But today she's going to tell us how she found freedom and what that freedom looks like. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Oh, ours to have you. Thank you. So, yeah, I love that line, actually, that Kathryn just mentioned in your introduction. You talk about it costing you more than you ever wanted to pay. Certainly, that's got to be probably a truth for everybody that finds recovery. So, sure. But as we said, so you also mentioned that you did not come into your addiction until early teens. So what did the preteen life look like for you? What was home life? And
Well, I was the youngest of 3 girls, and my parents, they struggled themselves.
With addiction?
Yes, with addiction. But they were really young. They were like 15 when they got married.
Oh, wow.
So it was just trying to find their footing in life, you know, and not to mention they did dabble with their addiction too.
Did they have help with y'all?
No. As far back as I can remember, my mom and dad, they went above and beyond trying to provide for us and to love and care for us. And we didn't really see many relatives around. It was just a close-knit home.
Yeah.
Well, we did have our cousins and aunts and uncles come by and visit and stuff like that. But as far as like helping with the home, no, it was just my mom and dad.
let me ask you a question. You said you don't remember a lot of extended family around. I mean, there are some cousins dropping in here and there. So and I want to preface this by saying you kind of trepidatiously say, yes, they struggled. We're not here to make anybody look bad. It's the reality of the story. Right. Your parents were broken, just like I am, just like we all are, just like, right? So they wrestled with their own brokenness, and part of that was addiction. So we appreciate you sharing that. So the fact that, that you had no extended family around, was that perhaps a consequence of their addiction? Like, had their family kind of gotten to the place where they were, we're done, we can't do this anymore?
I don't believe it was a consequence. I think it was by choice. You know, addiction leaves you in darkness where you kind of shut yourself off from the family. And it wasn't that they weren't ever around. They were around. And, I mean, they lived in the same city as us. However, my parents, they stayed to themselves.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they were protecting their addiction, right? I mean,
I'm sure.
You don't want to be around people that are telling you to stop if you're not ready to stop, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were raised then in addiction.
True. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you came by it honest.
What about your sisters? Oh. Like how I meant to ask, like, age difference. You said you're the youngest of 3.
We were all 3 years apart.
Okay.
So I'm the baby, and my middle sister's 3 years older than me, and then my older sister's 6 years older than me. So.
Okay.
Were y'all close growing up?
Me and my middle sister were, but my older sister, we were close, but around the age of 9, I was 9, she ended up getting married at 14.
Okay. And left.
And left.
Was that an effort to get out of the house, do you think?
Yes, sir.
It was, yeah. So you said close-knit, but clearly not a comfortable house. I mean, right, your sister's wanting to get out. I'm assuming maybe you wanted to get out. Everybody kind of wanted to get out of that, right?
Did, yes.
So it was close-knit by proximity and necessity, not by necessarily what felt like loving, caring. Even though I'm sure that was there, that's not what was rising to the top. Would that be fair to say?
With my older sister, yes, but
was she more the combatant?
Well, I believe that pain. She dealt with pain differently. She closed off. I think that it hindered her growth in a lot of ways. Like, she wasn't very open about her emotions and her feelings and
With anyone.
With anyone. But now me and my middle sister, when you're in a relationship with someone, you grow closer through suffering and through pain.
Sure.
And so with my middle sister, we really did. We had a very close-knit relationship. We went through a lot together.
Yeah. All of you did, but it sounds like, right? So were you and your middle sister, I don't know how to put this, kind of separated from your older sister? Like, was she kind of in orbit on her own out there doing?
She was.
Okay.
Was that because she didn't really let people in and y'all did have each other?
Yes.
Is that?
Well, also, she lived with my mom's mom a lot growing up. While my mom and dad got on their feet good, she moved away.
Ah.
Okay.
And so there was a barrier there, She let us get as close as we could. But
Sure.
We all lived two separate lives.
Yeah.
Well, and she experienced a different dynamic, right? So, I mean, is it possible, or maybe you even know this, was there addiction maybe at its most chaotic when she was younger? I mean, is that why she was brought out of the home and you guys were not?
Well, I'm not really sure. Like I said, I was 9 when she got married.
Sure.
So, that was really as far back as I can remember. I didn't see her that much in the home. I didn't really, but when she was around, she just kind of did her own thing. She was closed off, you know, and didn't really say much to us. Like, she was ready to get out. She was ready to get out.
Yeah, solitude was her hideout, right? Yeah.
For sure.
And you and your middle sister, each other, were your hideouts. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes being raised in a addictive home, unpleasant things get involved, like CPS, things like that. Was there ever any outside forces that had to be called in? And
Yes, there was. This is the first time I'm ever sharing my story. So
thank you.
please bear with me. But
Yeah.
when I was really young, it started at the age of 4. My dad's brother's son came to live with us. He was about 18. I say 18. He may not have been that old. But he started sexually abusing not just me, but both of my sisters too. And so that's where our addictions stem from. I tell people all the time that I was not bound by the drugs. I was bound by unforgiveness.
Yeah.
wow.
It diminished our family. It deteriorated our family from the inside, And my sister was trying to get out. And however, it wasn't normal, but it almost became our normal because it was something that happened every single night and there was no escape from it,
Yeah.
How long was he with you?
Off and on until I was about 9 years old.
So 5 years when she left.
So you were how old when that started?
About 4 or 5.
Well, for the first time telling your story, thank you for going there. That's a difficult place to go. So part of the desire to escape that home then was really less about your parents' addiction, although I'm sure that played a part, but more about this abusive character.
She was
in
just
the
trying
home.
to escape.
Yeah.
And y'all were too young too.
Yeah. Okay. And so I started by asking about CPS. So at what time did this get discovered? Like, when did this come to light? And then was CPS called in because of that?
Yes, actually, whenever, when I was 9, when my sister got married, my oldest sister got married and moved out, me and my middle sister were sneaking out, being rebellious kids, you know, and we got caught. We got caught sneaking out. And, well, we ran away and we ran to the police department. And we told the police what was happening in our home. And they ended up calling my oldest sister to come in and question her. And she admitted, we all admitted, you know, and said what was happening. And we ended up getting put in foster care for a limited time until the court system allowed us to go back home.
And was that the discovery moment for your parents too of all that? Did they?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we told them in roundabout ways. I think we were more ashamed of ourselves that we allowed it to go on that long without saying anything. So we were but we did tell my mom, like, he stinks, you know, will you please make him leave? We don't want him here. But we never came out and said what was really going on.
Children don't know how, and that's usually one of the normal, it's not normal, but the usual things that you will hear. And they don't know how to put words to it. And I think children also have that fear of, if I say or do the wrong thing, then I'm going to get in trouble. So I need to word this like, but in all honesty, they're crying out like, please see me.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've learned in research and shame and looking is that one of the quotes I read was that it needs 3 things. Shame needs 3 things exponentially to grow: secret, silence, and judgment. And it's keeping those things quiet and learning how to say something.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting about that third one, judgment, is it's typically we're judging ourselves, right? You're heaping that shame on you because that shame isn't yours to bear, is it?
No.
I mean,
But I felt shame.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, that I haven't said something before now.
Yeah.
Or that it's even happened. Is this because of me? Have I done something? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This thought came to my mind. It might be a little bit deep for the show, and please tell me if you're, I'm just going to mention one thing because shame is such a powerful captor, right, that we often heap on ourselves. And so I do want to say one thing about sexual abuse, and that is, and you know, we're not going to throw down anchor here, but for anybody listening who may be going through that, a lot of times people will shame themselves because their body responds the way God designed the body to respond to that, right? There is, as much as it is a horrific act, the abuse, the body can respond pleasurably because it's designed to respond that way. And because of that, oftentimes victims will heap shame on themselves. They'll convince themselves, well, I must have liked it at every level. And that's not true. That's just your body doing what the body's designed to do. It responds to that kind of touch in that kind of way. It does in no way, shape, or form mean that you approved of it, that you invited it, or that in any other way, shape, or form, it was a good thing to you. So I don't know if that was part of the shame you wore, but it is one of the things that I think victims have to come to terms with and move beyond. That's
I've had to walk through that with several women that I've worked with.
Yeah. It'd be kind of like expecting an addict who decides they want to get sober, that the next time they put a needle in their arm, they're not going to feel high. Well, that's not going to happen. Your body's designed, you're putting something in it that's going to make your body feel a certain way, right? So, well, thank you for going there. Like I said, we're not going to throw down anchor there. There's no need to. We understand that piece of it. So you go through this 5 years of really a horrible captivity. Yeah. So I will ask you this. Does your cousin then get taken out of the home after it's revealed?
He leaves.
He just leaves.
He leaves.
No legal action, nothing like, okay, but he leaves.
Well, the legal part of it, We were in foster care at the time of court, and our foster mom gets up and goes to use the restroom. And my dad, he walks up and he's like, if you don't lie and say he caught you smoking a cigarette, then you're going to have to live there for the rest of your life. Now, I have forgiven my dad, completely forgiven my dad. I love my dad with my whole heart. I'm a daddy's girl. I am the baby and the daddy's girl, you know. However, it was only until I got saved and the Lord delivered me from unforgiveness that I was able to look back at that. But that was a huge encounter from the Lord for me. Because when I was just 4 years old, there was this little mirror in my closet. And I don't know what it is about little girls, but they always look in the mirror and cry, you know, and look at their self cry. And I guess it just made me feel not so alone, you know. And I'd get in my closet and I'd cry and I'd say, Lord, if you're all powerful, why don't you make it stop? And so it was only until about 5 years ago that the Lord revealed to me that he was there with me and that, you know, he showed me spiritual warfare. Yeah. And then I said, well, why did my dad make me lie about it? I wanted to get to the bottom of it. Why did my dad make me lie? And I was looking at it like a bird's eye view, as if I was in my dad's shoes at that time. My dad was afraid that he would never see us again. Yeah. And he was willing to do whatever it took to keep us. And so I no longer felt that anger toward I didn't want my dad to explain to me. I didn't want my dad to tell me he was sorry anymore. I love my dad. And all of a sudden I was like, you know, I just wanted to show him that I loved him and that it was okay.
Oh, wow.
That is so powerful, Crystal, because I think clearly the power or the ability to forgive comes from God, right? But there are some perspectives that have to change for us. And you just described it so beautifully, right? That when we're hanging on to resentment, we kind of see that person as the enemy. But when we're able to step outside of that and see them as broken, this wasn't somebody who grew up intentionally planning on hurting their daughter, right? No, the way I always put it, at 5 years old, your dad didn't sit down with his parents and say, I can't wait to be a dad so I can damage my daughters. That's not what happens. Right. But through his own brokenness, they get there. But now you're broken because of it. And we don't see that connection until we do, until he shows it to us. So you really just painted that perspective shift so well to stop seeing him as intentional. Why did he do that to me versus what in his brokenness led him to this action, right? And we begin to see them as broken and we can somehow see it differently. Is that?
That's absolutely correct. Like, knowing my dad's story, you know, it was nothing that I did. It was nothing that I prayed. It was the Lord. It was his timing, and he wanted to reveal that to me because I earnestly sought healing. I earnestly sought to get to the bottom of it. I was a 30-year-old woman still talking about what happened to me when I was a child. I was bound for years, and it just kept replaying over and over again, you know, and I wanted healing from it and whatever it took. And, you know, when the Lord gave it to me, I was vacuuming the floor at a ministry. And the Lord, you know, the thought came in my mind of me being a little girl crying in that mirror. And I just sat down on the couch with the vacuum cleaner sitting right there. And I just cried. And I was like, Lord, what is it? Why would you show me that? And the Lord told me, he said, it's time, you know.
I think bigger for me was the biggest part of that is we've talked about unforgiveness, we've talked about the ability to forgive, but that the level of your forgiveness is when you said, I didn't even need him to say I'm sorry anymore. It was just it was a clean slate. Like even when we've talked about forgiveness, look, I have forgiven, but there are a lot of those times I've still wanted to hear I'm sorry. I don't know that I've heard it put that way. I didn't want to hurt my dad. I didn't need to hear it anymore.
I didn't want to hurt him.
It was forgiven. It was done.
You know, it's interesting. I agree with what you're saying, but maybe a slight twist here, and it's not, what I'm about to say is not your responsibility to get him to see it this way. I love that you get to this place where you don't need that anymore. That is true forgiveness. You don't need, but you know who does need that? Your dad actually does need to be able to get there, because for the perpetrator, the ability to say, I'm sorry, is that same monumental moment as for the victim to say, I don't need to hear it. So for him to be able to actually step through it would be healing for him.
I am believing for that.
Because there is an act of humility on his part. But the fact that you don't need it is wonderful, but he does.
I like that you pointed that out.
Yeah.
That is good.
So, I think it's part of us having it in recovery when we're talking about taking ownership.
Yeah.
It's when I make those amends, I need to own what I've done. I've had people tell me, no, I forgave you. It's good. I'm glad you're doing well. No, I still need to
make amends.
I need to say this.
That's right.
And I didn't think about it that way, but and that was a part of many of our processes. So I'll be praying for that too.
Thank you. My dad, he's a real country strong man. You know, he's really strong, and you know, for him to say that he was sorry would hurt his pride per se, and I never wanted to do that. I wanted my dad to be known for who my dad was. However, I have been standing and will stand in the gap for my dad's healing. Yeah. And even if it never comes, I'm okay.
Even if.
However, I do believe that the day will come when he's strong enough. But, you know.
Is your dad a believer?
He is. He is a believer. My dad's walked through a lot. However, they're not very loud about their faith. They're still, you know, coming to know who Christ is. And, you know, it's an honor that the Lord is using me in that way in my family. And I know that. So.
Yeah. Well, so I may be going where I shouldn't, right? But I am going to offer this to your dad, whom no doubt has some really wonderful qualities, because here's his daughter saying, I'm my daddy's girl and I love her. And so, sir, I do want to say to you, and thank you so much for raising such a wonderful girl and being a part of that really good work. But for yourself and anybody out there who is a believer, I would challenge your dad. I would challenge anybody else to stop finding your identity in your pride. Because if we take your story out of it, if we take every other story out of it, that element is going to be the biggest anchor to him not growing in Christ. We've got to stop finding our anchor in ourselves, right? So I would challenge you, sir, to find your strength where Paul found it. And what Paul said is, when I am weak, then I am strong. Because what he meant by that is, when I can kill my own pride, when I can kill my own self-strength, then I'm vacated enough from myself to allow God's strength to be in me. So I love your gracious and merciful look at that. And I understand that and understand where it comes from. But so if you would just allow me to challenge in that way. And I do that out of love. And I do that as a broken person myself. So I hope that you hear that. So
my challenge to that is to don't hold off on the hard conversations.
Yeah. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
Well, I can tell you what makes those hard conversations now. They used to probably would not have been hard years ago, but in my addiction, in the anger, and the bitterness that I had, I said things and did things that I should not have. Yeah. And I threw it in his face. Yeah. And it caused more damage than it ever did good. And so...
Well, you weren't going to ever get into a solution because you were...
Well, I was demanding, answers. I want to know why this happened. Sure. I want to know why you did this. I want to... And it only hurt him. It's not like he didn't know the truth. He just wasn't ready to face it. And me throwing it in his face like that... Yeah. I'm sure he felt very disappointed in himself. He felt like a failure as a father, and he's far from that. Yeah. Yeah, he's far from that.
But, you bring up another really great point, and it really shows clearly the work you've done, right? That you've done some work. There is a moment in our recovery or in the process of recovering that we have to shift from living life reactively to living it proactively, right? And so what you just described is a reactive relationship, right? You're reacting to the abuse with anger and resentment, and you're holding that against him, so you fire back. He reacts to that by doubling down on the pride and the silence. And boy, that's the devil's game. If he can get us to live reactive to each other, then he wins, because it's brokenness reacting to brokenness. When we can pause and let God into that mix and shift from being reactive to proactive, somebody saying, no, I am not going to react to that. I'm going to act beyond that. Mm-hmm. Now we got stuff. That's now right. We've got change. And you've clearly done that, right? And so I pray that your dad experiences that same freedom, because what you talked about being bound, and then you talk about healing. But what the beauty of that healing is, what that has given you is freedom.
Amen.
You've moved from being bound to being free. And I pray that and want that for your dad too, who is, again, a good man in his own right, full of brokenness, just like me, just like everybody. So, wow. Woo. So now we zip back in the time machine back to being 9 years old. And now the home life changes dramatically.
It does. So you've been, you're
the boogeyman
in foster,
is out.
You're at court, and then y'all go in. I'm guessing you did lie?
Yes, I did. Okay. And my sister did too. And then we moved back home. And my dad's boss lady, Miss Valerie, she paid for us to go to a private school. And then...
Are parents still in their addiction?
No.
Oh, so they are in recovery at this point?
Yes, sir.
I mean, not now, but at 9.
I've never talked about it. I've never gotten a straightforward answer, but I'm sure it was a part of DHR services that,
the requirement. Okay. Yeah, so
but hey, I don't know that
whatever
to
the
be
trigger
true,
is,
but I did see a dramatic turn in my dad's life. Awesome. I'd see him go out to the dog pens and kind of take a little longer out there, or come back with his face red, sit in his truck. I just seen the transformation taking place from afar, from a child's point of view. Yeah. At the time, I didn't really know what was going on, but hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, I got to witness my dad change. I did. He don't know it. I've never spoken to him about it, but I did. I seen him change.
Yeah, in a positive way.
In a positive way.
That's wonderful. So what's interesting is that here you are out of foster care, you're coming back, different dynamic, parents now in recovery via mandate or personal choice, doesn't matter. Eventually it became a personal choice, right? But your addiction hasn't yet started, right? You said yours starts in your early teens. Is that?
Well, that's about when it started, honestly. We started off huffing gas. And
wow. How did that come about?
How do you jump into huffing gas?
Right before we left, before we ran away, I remember drinking here and there with my older sister, with my sister. Like we would sneak out and go see her boyfriend, and we would drink in his apartment. You know, I remember getting so drunk I passed out and threw up one night. But it was just one time that I recall, and so. When we ran away, my mom was the manager of an apartment complex, and all the cops got called, and it was a big storyline in the paper. My mom got fired from her job, and so that was when we had to move, and that was when everything. When we came out of foster care, we were living in a totally different city.
Oh, wow!
And so. The wound was still there. The rebellion was still there. Just because they had started changing didn't mean that we had started changing at that point. We were still harboring, bad feelings.
Still broken.
Sure.
And
Very
hurting.
much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we were in a private school. I was cheerleading at the time. My sister was playing volleyball. It was the first time we ever got to play sports in school, so we were really excited about that. The year after that, we went to a public school. We left the private school and we went to a public school. And
huge change of environment.
Huge change of environments. And that was when our drug addiction started.
Ticked up.
That's when you started huffing gas?
That's when we started huffing gas.
Oh, in the public school.
Well, I don't know what made my sister think about it, but I looked up to my sister. I looked up to my sister because like I said, I was the baby of the three. So, I always felt like I never had my mom and dad's attention. Like they were busy in their drug addiction. They were distracted. They were, handling the older two. They were kind of troubled. And so I just had free reign to do what I wanted to do,
Were you the quiet one? Were you the one flying under the radar?
Exactly. And so I didn't.
Because you were really sweet. And they just didn't see it coming, did they?
They did not. They did not. And
I don't have a problem seeing that.
So I just kind of, my sister, she would get to go out with her boyfriend on the weekends and stuff. And I would be like, Mama, make her let me go with her. I wanted to go with her. I wanted to do everything that she did because I looked up to her I just looked up to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you went with her?
I went with her. And when she said, let's huff some gas off the four-wheeler, I said, let's do it. And that's where it started.
So where did it...
quickly...
Yeah, go ahead.
How quickly did that progress? Like where did that... Right, you start huffing gas and then...
Very quickly.
So you're about, 14? 12? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. About 13 or 14. And then we started smoking marijuana and drinking heavily. We used to babysit for our bus driver's daughter. And so she would let us smoke cigarettes at her house. She would let us drink at her house.
The bus driver?
The bus driver's daughter.
Okay.
She lived next door to the bus driver. So, and she had three infants, not really infants, I say. One of them was like a year old and the other one was 3 years old. And so we kept her kids for her, and she let us drink and hang out all night with boys or whatever.
Yeah. Do you graduate high school?
No, sir. I got kicked out.
You did. So what happened there?
I got into a fight.
Okay.
I got into a fight. And
using related?
No, sir.
Relationship related? What happened here?
Well, I got
this sweet, innocent, flying under the radar girl.
So, sorry.
She's got this soft little voice, and then she's like, "Well, I got in a fight," and I was like, "That was about as expected as the huff and gas was."
Well, I was. Like I said, I was a daddy's girl, and I sought for my daddy's approval. I sought to make my daddy proud in any kind of way. Well, we rode the school bus at this public school, and like 2 or 3 people jumped on me on the school bus. And I get home, And I tell my dad about it. And like I said, my daddy's a good country, good old boy kind of thing, you know. And he said, you're going to that school and you're going to do this. And I was like, yes, sir. And so I went to the school and I went in there and did what he asked me to do. Not really asked me to do, but he told me to do, because I just wanted, you know, like I said, my dad's approval. And so I ended up getting sued by the NAACP. And
You got sued by the NAACP?
And they kicked me out of school for 2 years. And so at that time, at a public school, if you got kicked out of a public school, you couldn't go to any other school until that time was up.
Wow.
And so I was on probation at the time.
You were on probation at the time?
Because of that. Because of the fight. Because of the fight, they put me on probation. And so my probation officer was like, you just go get your GED. Go start going to get your GED. And I said, yes, ma'am. So that's what I did.
Can I ask you a weird question, right? Yes, but this was, I don't know. This was obviously no small, like I'm picturing there was an old song by a country, his name escapes me. Coward of the County is what the song was. I remember about this kind of coward guy, shy guy, or that was the theory. But then something bad enough happens, he goes in and kind of beats up an entire bar. That's the country song.
Yeah.
Was this moment that you fought, because I mean, you're getting sued by the NAACP, blah, blah. Was this a moment where all of your rage and all of your anger had an escape? I mean, this sounds like you really used this to pop that bubble. Is that? Yeah. So it was not just a... Well,
the anger was already brewing, you know what I mean? Like it was brewing in my home life. I remember times of me and my sister fighting like cats and dogs, you know, like it was brewing. And it just the moment that my dad said, you're going to do this, I used it for an opportunity to unleash.
I was going to say, it gave you permission to let it go.
Yeah. The cap came off.
And the side benefit is he'd be proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. So all this anger and rage is sort of all over the place right now. So what happens with your addiction being kicked out, all that stuff? Is this now, Ella, you're going for your GED, but does this make the addiction increase? What's happening?
Absolutely. Well, I get a job working at Waffle House
so now you got
at the age of 16. Yeah. I quit living with my mom and dad for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. I was living with my aunt and uncle, working at Waffle House in Thomasville, and just one thing led to another. And you work, you know, they were open 24 hours a day. So the late hour shifts, people would be coming in from the clubs and from the bars and stuff and bring cocaine, meth, whatever with them. And I would take it to the bathroom, you know, and... So
it shot off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the restaurant industry is tough that way, right? I mean, there tends to be a lot of that, and not that there's a industry that's free of it, but that one seems to come up a lot. So now was cocaine kind of your thing? Was that the drug of choice?
I did not have a drug of choice.
Just
really.
Whatever came across the table.
Anything and everything, really.
Anything that altered your reality.
Yes. Yeah. As I got older, you know, Xanaxes were, because I was completely absent, you know, no matter where I was not there, you know.
And that's what you were looking for.
Right.
What about your sister during this time? Was she in addiction?
Yes.
Or doing her own? Okay. All right. And you were living?
Both of them?
Both of them, yes, sir. My oldest sister was in a crack addiction and heavy crack addiction. And then my middle sister was the same as me, you know, just anything and everything.
Okay. So were you able to hold down a job? Was that?
Actually, yeah, I did pretty well. I did pretty well. It kept me out of the house. It was putting money in my pocket, and it fed my drug addiction. So I'd much rather been there than at home.
Okay.
All right, so take us from there, because there are some consequences that come along here, right? I think you had mentioned that it took you several trips through treatment programs before you actually got it. So where do we go from here? How does it get there?
Well, I get pregnant.
Okay.
I have my first son at the age of 17, and he's currently at the City of Refuge for Men now, which is a blessing.
That's awesome.
That is. a huge blessing. However, when I had him, I was pregnant with him, and my sister and my baby's father had an affair, or started having an affair. And it drove me like nosedive into my addiction.
Your middle sister, the one that you felt bonded to, has this affair. So huge trust thing being
They
broken.
move into my mom and dad's house.
Oh.
So
that affair actually becomes the overt relationship. It's not really the side relationship anymore.
God used it to set me apart. God used that whole transition to set me apart. To truly draw me away from my family and call me into his. You know, he did. That was, I felt betrayal by
devastation,
everybody around me. And I remember thinking to myself, if I can't trust my mom and dad and my sister, then who can I trust? You know, I didn't trust anybody. And so I drove for years in my car, just driving and sleeping on couch to couch. I'd go here and take a shower, here to eat, here to sleep.
Did you have your son with you?
I did.
Okay.
I did for most part, yeah.
Okay.
So you guys were living in your car? You
for
and
a
your
little
son.
while.
Okay.
Yeah. I did end up taking him back.
Your son's father? Okay.
How did that come about?
Just being desperate. Needing security, needing a place to stay.
Now, was he using? He was a user. Okay.
I also think that in that, our self-worth is non-existent. Anything is better. The things that we accept that we would never accept.
Yeah.
Ever. Or that we there's very things that we really try so hard to instill in others. Sure. Like, hey, look, you're better than this. And
I was desperate for love.
Yeah.
I was so desperate for
somebody.
Love. Anybody. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd already went through the hardest part of my life, you know, in the abuse that I endured as a child. So it was almost, dysfunction was normal to me. Toxicity was normal. I mean, for somebody to hurt me and tell me they love me, that was normal.
Yeah.
Oh, what a powerful statement. For somebody to hurt you and say that they love you was normal. Yeah.
That must be love, because that's all you had known.
And when you're desperate for love at that place, it also tends to indicate that you're incapable of giving it to yourself as well. Are you at the point where you're just not liking yourself, or what's happening here?
I never reflected on myself whatsoever. I never thought, you know, that I had something to give anybody, much less myself.
You'd never been taught to think that you did.
But I remember when I told my child's father that I wanted a baby. And he was like, why do you want a baby with me? And I said, I want unconditional love that nobody could ever take away from me. And looking back on it now, you know, even that love was temporal.
Yeah.
You know, I lost custody of him, and then I realized that was temporal, you know, that only the love of God could really satisfy me and be permanent in my life.
Well, inadvertently too, and I know you don't mean this, but that puts a lot of responsibility on that baby, right? You're looking to that baby to rescue you emotionally, and that. Now, you just said you lose custody of him. This is after you and your ex get back together again, because that's the first I've heard of that. So how do we get there?
Well, I had 2 other children too.
Okay, by the same guy?
By the same guy.
Okay.
Did y'all get married? I was going to ask.
We were married.
Okay.
We were only married for like 6 months, and then we got a divorce. However, we stayed together for about 12 years.
Sure.
Okay. Off and on, very rocky, very, you know, he left me several times,
Well, again, you had resigned to this dysfunction at this point, right? So he's having on and off affairs. When he comes back, sure, why not?
I felt hopeless.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a leg to stand on, really. Like, I depended on him for everything, you know.
Okay. And all the while, both of you still using?
Well, more so me at this point. I mean, he worked construction, so he was gone like 8 months out of the year. So I was at home with the children by myself. And, you know, you kind of get lost in that. That becomes your identity, you know, as being a mom. That was, and so I just kind of, you know, dove in my addiction and stayed in my addiction. I was what they call a functioning addict, which they don't, you know, that's not a such thing really, but
to you it was.
Yeah. It's almost a really dangerous phase of the addiction, right? Because it's the con, right? If you can function.
I can do this and I can keep this.
Yeah, and the addiction gets to grow under that fantasy of functioning until you can't. Right. I mean, eventually gets to that place where you can't. Did you ever have any like legal consequences?
I went to jail a lot. Not until maybe my second or third time in treatment. You know, I taught class this morning, and a part of it I said, you know, my relationship with the Lord started out, he was a friend that stuck closer than a brother, you know, and all those times in my car, when I was just riding in my car, I was reaching out to the Lord, and he was a friend to me.
You spent a lot of time praying, doing that in the car? Okay.
I did. I had a Bible that sat on my dash, you know, and I would read it, and he would say, put your faith and trust in no man but in me alone. You know, whenever I got to the place where I felt betrayed by everybody closest to me, he was a friend that stuck closer than a brother. And I had divine protection over my life, you know, and he would do things here and there, answer certain little prayers to increase my faith. However, it got to a point where he was no longer a friend. He became my father. And I started reaping the consequences of my actions. He's like, okay, well, you know, you're going to have to deal with this. You can't keep living like this. And so
it started costing you.
Then I started taking heed to his instructions, you know.
So your arrest, possession, things like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point did you lost custody? But I didn't understand. Had you already tried to go to treatment before that, or how did that?
After my second child was the first time that I went through the Home of Grace, and both of my sisters went through the Home of Grace, by the way.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Both of them did. And then that sparked something in me, like a curiosity for, you know.
Did they get recovery?
Yes, but no.
Yes and no. Okay. Which would be no.
It worked for a little while, you know, but there's still, you know, struggle. But, so after my second child, I wanted what they had for that small season. I seen them get sober, and I wanted that.
You saw something that you wanted.
And so, I went through the Home of Grace, but the first time I left walking down Hallelujah Lane. I got there, and I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
In my mind, the only thing I struggled with at that point in time was marijuana and Xanaxes. And I thought, you know, I'm not that bad. Because I would hear stories of the other girls and think, you know, their story's way worse than mine. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
But the Lord showed me really quick, you know.
Well, I'm glad. I'm always thankful when somebody brings up that point, because I see people leave on that, and it's like over and over. I can't say that enough, that your bottom doesn't have to look like everybody else's.
Right.
Because if I go into a place, if I go to a speaker meeting, that's where somebody first said that to me years ago, and I didn't hear it then. They were like, stop looking for the differences. Something is similar, because we are all alike.
Comparison kills.
Yeah, like stop looking for that. Find the ways in which you are alike, because you will hear your story. It doesn't matter. Y'all can look different, be from different backgrounds, have different substances, but y'all are the same.
That's right.
And it's brokenness.
Yeah.
It's sin, it's brokenness, it's shame, all of those things. And that we are all alike.
That's right.
And nothing may indicate that you're not ready as much as listening for how you're not that person, right? If I'm listening for the reason why I shouldn't be here, I'm probably not ready. Doesn't mean that it's a wasted trip. God's planting seeds.
Seeds are definitely planted.
Yeah,
for sure.
But
well, and you said you ultimately went back, so you knew where to go back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was also detoxing off Xanaxes, so I was ready. I was ready to go back to my addiction. You know, I wasn't ready to let it go completely.
Sure.
Yeah.
I thought I was, and the idea of becoming this sober mom for my children, I wanted that. It was a heart's desire, but I just didn't have the determination to carry that out yet.
Yeah.
Well, that is today, and you've done admissions, I've done intakes. You tell me, Xanax, I'm not taking a chance on you. You need to be medically detoxed. It's deadly.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So quick little PSA on that note, since we've mentioned it. Yeah. If your struggle is alcohol or benzos, then don't change. You need medical help. Those are the two most dangerous ones to withdraw from unmedicated, right? People often think that, opiate is the big dog, but it's not. Benzos and alcohol, there's actually a mortality rate attached to that if you try to do it on your own, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Opiates, you'll wish you were dead, but it's not likely to kill you, whereas benzos and alcohol, that withdrawal can. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, so here we go. So now you're in your 20s? Is this where we're at?
Early 20s, yes, sir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it took you, we had the benefit of talking to you a little bit before the show started, and you'd mentioned that there were 7 treatment programs for you before it clicked that final time, right? Each time you're getting seeded and watered and tilled and all that good stuff. Run us through that, 1 through 7 real quick. Like what was happening? What between those?
What did you hold on to?
There you go. Yeah.
What kept you going backwards? Like typically we've held on to something we still needed healing that we were unwilling to let go of. What did that part look like for you? Because you kept coming back.
I did.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
Like I said, I was desperate for love, and I found an unconditional love and treatment that I could not find anywhere else in the world. I searched for it high and low. I even searched for it in my children, Therefore, every time I would leave to go back, I would go back to my kids thinking that was my identity. That was, a mom is who I was. That was all there was to me. Yeah. And if I could not succeed at that, then I was a failure. And so my whole motive for leaving was to go back home to be a mom. And I would get out there and I would realize that life is hard. And it costs to live, and especially with 3 children. And my ex was not paying child support, and so to financially provide for 3 children by that point was almost impossible for me. Like, the Lord had to provide for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it on my own, not alone. And so I would go back out and I would, get my kids and get me a place to live and try to financially provide. And then maybe my lights would get cut off or something. And then I would have to send the kids to their dads, which I did not want to do.
Yeah.
And then I would feel like a failure and I would fall right back into my addiction. But I remember, it's funny that she's, put it in that context like 7 times. What, I would be graduated from the Home of Grace and wouldn't be in my addiction, not even 2 or 3 months. And I'm calling back and I'm like, Mary, can I come back? Can I come back? She's like, you got to wait 90 days, Crystal. And I'm like, I was ready.
I'll make it 90 days.
I need to get back, So that was what it was. I had my identity was in being a mom and not in a child of God.
Let me ask something. As hard as it is, I'm glad that that's where you went with that, because I don't know that we've really been able to answer that from a mom. On the damage, what harm do you think it cost you, cost your children, that you went back, got them from where they were building multiple times before you were ready? Because that is what I see so often. And that is another thing that keeps moms and dads, single dads, from going to treatment. It's like, well, but I need to do this for my kids. Well, I'm ready. I can leave. I need to get back to my kids. They need me.
Hurting them more.
But you're not ready. Yeah. So now what do you say to that? Like, if you could do it again, what would you say to you then?
It's now or never. I'm still reaping seeds that I've sown. Like I said, my 17-year-old's in a rehab, at this point in his life. And I see the fruit from my decisions. I see his brokenness. I see where he's, I just see it.
Yeah.
And I'm reaping that right now. And I'm walking through that with him. And it is healing for us both. However, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It did cost me more than I was ever willing to pay, It just cost a lot. Not only time and, their stability, their security, their identity. I've learned through treatment that kids need 4 basic needs, and that's praise, purpose, unconditional love, and security. And none of my kids got those things.
You just said something I was about to go back and ask. So it's really interesting that you said you learned that, because the third thing that you mentioned that they need is what you were looking for. You're looking for unconditional love from somebody who needs it, right? So that's what happens often in addiction homes, is those roles get reversed. The kid is parenting the parent, right? And so you were looking for something for them that they needed. It's like me going to the ocean and saying, I got to go to the beach because the ocean needs water. Well, no, I need the water from the ocean, right? I mean, it's like that's right. So, So yeah, that's really a powerful insight on your end. So where does the aha moment come for you, right? Because you it sounds like you're leaving and pretty quickly going back to, are you going back to, one question I have is, when you leave these programs, because it doesn't sound like you're stringing together a very long period of sobriety between them. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Are you going kind of back to old environments, old people, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And I just really want people to hear that, and because that's often the case, right? We have to change that, right? So biblically speaking, the Bible says you don't put new wine, and I get the irony of this, but it says you don't put new wine into old wineskins, and that's exactly what newly recovered people often try to do, right? They take that new wine, that new spirit, and they go right back to the old wineskin and expect that it's gonna last, and that's not gonna happen.
And that they will be the exception, and I can do this.
Yes,
and if you've done it more than once, then it's like, but I know what I did that time. This time I can do it, and it's still.
Yeah.
Well, I kept going back to my hometown. I did, but Majority, the enemy would make, I say the enemy, but I had a heart's desire to save my family, you know, and I would go back thinking that I was going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
How do you see that now? Because that sounds very noble.
I make a better difference right where I am and serving the Lord and being grounded and being rooted and, you know, being faithful and consistent in my walk with the Lord. That.
And not in your hometown.
And not in my hometown, you know.
Amen. Right. Sometimes we need to become a beacon of light, and it's
From
not
afar.
us. It's not us. It's God through us that they're drawn to. Right. Too
That's
oftentimes we go to them, and that's the wrong motion. Right.
I like that. Yeah. And then they can see it and say, well, even if it's years later, and a lot of times it will be, but it's all right. They really didn't do anything we expected them to do because she's done X, Y, Z every other.
Well, you know, you live in close proximity with someone. They see your flaws. They see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when, you know, when there's distance there, it's kind of, it's more impactful.
Yeah.
When they do.
And, you know, you mentioned something there that is, so there's again, a biblical truth. It says, you know, Jesus, I think it says this, that a prophet is never accepted in his homeland. And I think that's the reason. Because, you know, people who know us well, they can't see beyond the faults that they know in us, which is really sad. But the reality is that it's our faults in us that show the grace and the mercy and the strength in him, right? So there are people who get there. But one of the things I wanted to say to you is that while you said you're reaping kind of this reaping what you had sown with your son, but that's true on two levels. I am sure that he has a story to tell of his own home life and living in an addicted home, and I'm sure that there's part of that. But he's also in a treatment program now, and so you're also reaping his ability to see you change.
That's right.
And walk it out with him.
There's a good side of that, too.
I've heard him telling stories that, you know, someone asked him the other day, said, what was your mom like before she married Eli? And he really didn't, you know, not that he didn't have anything to say, is he couldn't remember. Like he couldn't remember, you know, not necessarily remember what I was like in, you know, as a mom or whatever, but just in my addiction, like he couldn't remember that. And so that was a blessing. That was a huge blessing. Because there was separation. You know, I've been serving the Lord for the past 6 years. Like I've been living in Mississippi. I have had no, you know, I see my kids on the weekends, but they just see the glimpse of the healed me, you know.
So you're saying it's a blessing that he can't remember who you were before then. Yeah, that's a great insight. So tell us, Crystal, where did the light come on for you? What happened? What the last treatment or whatever? What changed? What was the moment?
It was a slow progression, you know.
Okay.
Working through my life story umpteen times, you know. I went through the Home of Grace 4 times, and each time you have to write your whole life story down, and you have to go through it with a one-on-one counselor. I did that, and, you know, I received healing in certain parts at certain points in my journey. However, when the light really came on for me was when the Lord met me and delivered me while I was in my active addiction. I had a true encounter with the Lord.
What did that look like?
Okay, so I had already been through 6 treatment programs, and this was after going back home 6 different times. After every time I would graduate, I'd go back home, try to take care of my kids, go back home and try to do this on my own and my own strength. And I was sitting in this woman's shoe shed. I didn't have any shoes on my feet. I had been in an abusive relationship. My car was broke down. All 4 tires were slit. You know, I didn't have anywhere to, I was homeless. And I just broke one day. You know, I was heavily in my addiction. I was, you know, shooting up at this point. But I just dropped my head and I said, God, what am I doing? What am I doing? You know, and then I start replaying this over in my head. I was like, Lord, but I did this and I did that and all I'm trying to do. And he just stopped me. He was like, you're trying to do everything in your own strength. If you would just stop and let me, I'll do it for you. And I was like, okay, yes, sir. And I said, but I just want to be used by you, Lord. And it was like this Shutterfly, like this movie Shutterfly come through my mind of people that I was using while I was in my addiction. Like,
manipulating?
No,
Is that
sir.
what you mean?
No,
using?
like the Lord was using me even while I was in my addiction.
Okay.
I carried a girl to the home of grace with me at one point in my walk. I didn't care if they didn't allow me to come in at that point. I just wanted her to get the healing that she needed, and so I seen all these people. They were already in rehab and they were already doing good, and I was still stuck in my mess. And the Lord's like, I am using you. And then I just felt like this great sense of honor come over me. Like, Lord, if you would use me in my mess, I can only imagine what you're going to do if I get sober. And so I had like this fire lit up under me. I was ready to get sober. I was ready to be used to the maximum capacity, like, do it, Lord. And I did. I surrendered. That was my moment of full surrender. Like, I was tired. It had been 6 times and I was just tired.
That's the end of yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the action, right? That surrender, that's the action, right? God is not a God of compromise, right? And we try to compromise with him all the time. We try to strike deals.
Yeah.
And I've said this before on here, that any deal that we could make with him, if he met that, and thank God he doesn't, our end of the deal makes things worse for us. That's why he's not going to compromise. He's going to say, look, if I did it that way, if I compromised what I want for you, you would suffer because of it. And I'm not willing to do that. When you're ready to surrender to me and come my way 100%, then we now we got a deal.
Well, see, the enemy kept me on the hook because my desires were godly desires, and so
Your means were not godly means, though.
No, they weren't. I would go back and I thought, well, of course the Lord wants me to be a mom. He wants me to be a godly mom. And so I would go back. And whenever I had that moment with him and that lady, he told me, he's like, you keep following your own desires, doing things in your own strength. If you would just allow me to do these things, then I would give you what you're asking for.
Yeah.
I would give you your heart's desires. You just got to allow me to do it in my time and my way. And so I had
and a little caveat to that, because I want to be careful, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree with this. But there is a danger there that sometimes people will begin to see God as their personal genie, right? That he'll. The reality is that when we get closer to him, our desires become his desires. We actually begin to desire what he wants for us. That's why those come true. It's not that he goes, okay, you've done all good. Now we'll give you that Mercedes Benz, right?
Right.
Right. So you understand what I'm talking. So it's our desires naturally become the desires he has for us, right? Because we're getting closer to him. Would you agree with that?
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So I do want to spend a few minutes talking about, because I love this, and you're one of these hearts that was changed and is now giving back. Can you talk a little bit about what the Lord is doing in your life and how you're giving back?
You mentioned a spouse.
Yes. While I was at the last treatment, he was the director at the time of the City of Refuge, Elijah Ward, that's my husband. We were renting a building from them, the women's ministry that I was a part of. We were renting a building from him, and he came and introduced himself to me one day. And it was so funny. I ran from him forever. Like, he would send me YouTube videos on Messenger, and I was like, I block him, and then I unblock him, and I block him. And I was like, I told him at first, I was like, I can't have any contact with men, And so we just did this back and forth for over a year, and then we ended up getting married, and we've been serving at the City of Refuge for Men, or he has. I've just been kind of foreshadowing him and learning all the tricks of the trades, and we're fixing to open a women's City of Refuge.
Amen.
Yes, in the spring sometime.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
And you'll be the women's director?
Yes, the Lord has asked me to steward that and to help get that off the ground.
That's exciting.
That is super exciting. It is exciting. I am kind of battling, the feelings of inadequacy. Like, how did I get here? It seems so much grander than me,
Because you got out of the way and let him move.
Isn't that what God is saying, though?
I just said, yes, I'm willing.
Yeah.
Send me. I'm willing. Whatever you need, Lord.
But I love what you just said there, too. It's so much grander than you, right? When we do finally get out of our way and say, okay, you do it, it's going to be way grander than us. That's what I mean, right? His way is better.
You asked him to use you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
How long have you been married?
5 years.
5 years. Okay.
Going on 5 years. Yeah.
All right. So I'm not going to ask you the particulars of that because I know them, right? They're up, and I don't mean I know them. No, marriage is hard. And Satan attacks. There's up and downs. I know you guys have been on a roller coaster ride, but what I love about the beginning of it is that throughout your addiction, you ran to any relationship that if somebody glanced your way, I'm taking it, right? You were looking for love in all the wrong places.
I know where you're going.
Then
That's
comes
great.
this man who is, and you're trying to run away from with some wisdom, attached to it, right? You're saying, hey, I recognize this is a troubled spot for me.
Yes.
Right.
I'd rather not even have it.
Right. You're still acting on your own knowledge, your own insight that, hey, but this is the point here is that when God is ready for you to have it, you won't be able to sabotage it. You tried and it didn't work.
Yes, absolutely.
It was in his plan for you to come. Guys and girls, you don't need to run to every relationship there. When God is ready, he'll make it happen for you, right? You tried to escape this one and it didn't work.
Yes.
Well, and when we've only known unhealthy, toxic, addictive, and abusive relationships,
there's a fear there.
There's a huge fear.
Sure.
It's overwhelming, and it's inadequacy, but I know how to do dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I do not know how to do those healthy relationships that people talk about.
Yeah, amen.
And it's a learning thing.
Yeah. I was super scared. I was super nervous.
Sure.
And
wisely so.
Yeah. I was also, serving in a women's ministry. I was the program manager. And so I was walking in my calling. I was slowly being restored to my children. My daughter got to live there on property with me. And so I was comfortable. I was comfortable. And the Lord said, don't get too comfortable. He's more concerned with our character than our comfort. And so had to go through another little sanctification process. Still walking through that.
Yeah, this side of heaven, we always will be.
But it's so worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. It's worth it.
Well, good stuff. What kind of an exclamation point would you like to put on your story for anybody out there listening? What would you want?
As a side note,
Joe,
how are you with boundaries today?
They come easier and easier.
Okay.
Work in progress?
It is still a work in progress. I'm very, I don't know. I really don't know.
Briefly.
That's
when
great.
Crystal and I met in a program in 2017. Yeah.
Both
17.
clients in the program?
Yeah.
That's when you met? Okay.
And boundaries by that point were not my, that was not my, my issue. I was almost, I probably leaned more rigid than collapsed. So I know to get it healthy. But the joke, even a couple of years after that, was she knew she had none. Like, she had readily admitted that. But years would go by, and I'd get a random message, and it'd say, Kathryn, I've got this coming up. Could I borrow your boundaries? And I was like, yeah, you can use them. So
I love that.
That's why I wanted to ask that.
Yeah.
I am super proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that is wonderful.
The longer that I've walked with the Lord, it's kind of gotten to where, my love for people's souls have gotten greater than what, I'm not going to say I loved them any less then, but it was more of a people please, and I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But now it's, I love your soul, and I hate to have to hurt your heart to fix your soul, but I will.
I like that.
I found out love holds people accountable, and it makes them do the right thing.
Love rejoices in the truth.
Exactly.
Amen.
And I didn't know that then, but I'm coming to know that. I'm coming to know love.
Yeah, love can be tough. right? Mm-hmm. And there is that side to it. There's a soft side and a tough side to love. Mm-hmm. And maybe what a great point to end on. I've said before that God loves us too much to enable us, right? The explanation there is enablers are typically well-intended, right? For anybody who doesn't know what an enabler is, it's somebody who essentially softens the consequences for the addict throughout their entire addiction, right?
Or just keeps you from them altogether.
Yeah, right. So, you may have a son or a daughter who they're on their 15th, 16th, 25th time calling you from a jail, and you're there the next morning picking them up, or they're calling you from the street. You're giving them 3 hots and a cot every time. When the enabler finally stops softening the consequences, the addict may come to the end of themselves, as Kathryn just noted, and say, I don't want to live like this anymore. Well, God loves us too much to enable us. He's not going to soften the edges of your choices, of the consequences of your choices, because he knows that that's not helping you. It's helping the consequence. It's helping the problem grow, not you. An enabler is well-intended, but what they're actually helping grow is the problem, not the person. So God will not enable you because he wants you to see sooner than later, my way is not working, and fall to that place, to the foot of the cross. Okay, God, in full surrender, not compromised, deal-making surrender, in full surrender, I trust you. I trust that your way is better than mine. We love you. More importantly, Jesus loves you, and we'll see you next time on Jesus Loves Addicts.